Hey, what's up, you guys? Great to have you back on the show. I'm Sean David, and let's talk some old school basketball. In today's episode, we're going to take a look at NBA legends giving their opinion on how good Shawn Kemp was. Unfortunately, there are not too many clips around on YouTube, but still I've found a couple of good ones, so let's have a look, and I hope you enjoy. Now, I want to start off this video by taking a look what his former running mate Gary Payton has to say. Gary Payton, who used to form the dynamic duo and, of course, the original Lob City.
Playing with Shawn, it was really great. He's like a little brother to me, but he's bigger, but people don't know how good he really was. He was really good. And me and him became a duo like this because we were together so long, and we hung out with each other. And we've seen each other, and we was around each other all the time. It was just like we were real brothers. And for me to play with him for 8 years, it was just a magnificent. I think if he wouldn't have left, he would be in the Hall of Fame with me right now. I really do think that. I think that he left too soon. We had something going, and you know how basketball goes. It gets into these contract things and all that stuff, and I just think that this guy was better than a lot of people really don't understand. I think that with the Barkleys, all these guys, the Karl Malones, the Tim Duncans, this guy was one of them.
Now, the next player that we're going to take a look at is Eddie Johnson. If you haven't heard of him, he was one of the best shooters of the 1980s and 1990s, playing for the Phoenix Suns, and of course, a former teammate of Shawn Kemp's, so playing for the Seattle Supersonics.
Who's better, Blake Griffin or the Rain Man, Shawn Kemp? Now, I have a quiet love for Shawn Kemp because I played with him as a young player in Seattle. And I saw some of the most unbelievable, impossible feats in practice that you ever want to see. And every now and then he would show us on the basketball court. Now, Shawn Kemp was a man-child, came straight out of high school. And Shawn in his career averaged 14 points a game, 8 rebounds, 1.2 blocks, shot 48%. Blake Griffin, 6 years in the league right now, averaging about 21 points a game, shoots 52%, grabs 10 rebounds, and averages about 3.5 assists. Now, the comparison is kind of distorted because Shawn Kemp was tremendous on the court, but his production went down because of his inability to understand how to handle himself off the court. So it hurt his career. But hey, that's where it lies. So who's better? I give it to Blake Griffin. Shawn Kemp could have been great, could have been a Hall of Famer, didn't get it done. Being an athlete is being well-rounded, not only on the court, but off the court. Blake Griffin seems to have it figured out. His struggles has been there, but guess what? He is improving. His free throw percentage is shooting up. He had one of the best runs last year when Chris Paul was out with injury, and I think he is evolving as one of the top 5 players in the NBA. Blake Griffin is better.
Okay, just for the record, I totally understand where Eddie Johnson is coming from, especially because that clip is a little bit older. But if I would have to compare prime Shawn Kemp and prime Blake Griffin, I would actually go with Shawn Kemp. But that's just my personal opinion. Let's continue with the video. Now, the next segment is actually one of my favorite segments of NBA Open Court because there you have the most NBA legends sitting. They discuss if Shawn Kemp actually was a missed opportunity and didn't reach his full potential.
They swarm into that double. They do on the baseline. Now Kemp going to the hoop.
So that's the name of that we didn't mention in the first segment that we mentioned here in the what if category. And you look at the career of Shawn Kemp.
Original Lob City.
Yeah.
Gary Payton and Shawn Kemp,
greatest,
I may let them say they was the originators of that.
Some of the greatest in-game dunks.
It was a what? It's not really a what if. He really was he had it, and we saw it.
And yet, but do you think you saw all that you could have seen of that career?
I don't think we've seen anyone dunk with that type of
force,
animosity, just like You know, just like, it was just like you had.
It was personal against the rim.
As Steve said, you know, today the way he dunks, it would be a 5-game suspension. just the way he dunked. And you know, the point.
When we bring these guys up, it's not always because of an injury or something catastrophic that happens that cuts it short. Circling back to Kemp, it was like he had all of this going on, and then suddenly
got hungry.
He's twice the man he used to be.
He got hungry.
And not in a point in his career where it was over. He still had years left. What was your take on where he went from this to this, and the numbers then begin to dwindle?
Well, we saw them in the '96 finals, and watching Rodman and Kemp go at it was incredible. But I think that was when Shawn was at the height of his powers. And then I played with Shawn a few years later in Portland, about 2001. And I think it was just the lockout. You know, a lot of guys need the game and need the structure of practicing and workouts. And the lockout happened, and he came back probably 50 pounds overweight. And I don't think he was ever able to recover from that.
But he doesn't seem like, if you look at guys' bodies, you go, well, he's a guy I never have to worry about working out.
Yeah.
He's a guy I never, I got to watch him. But Shawn Kemp, and the way he was built and the way he looked, you would say that would never be an issue for him, weight. And that was so surprising that, you know, weight was an issue for him. And, you know, unfortunately, we realized probably, I think some of those other demons off the court affected him to gain the weight.
Right.
But it just showed, even at it, when he was heavy, 50 pounds overweight, he was like, I'm still a great jump shooter. You know, that's the difference when people say, you know, Blake Griffin. I said, well, you've never really seen Shawn Kemp, because the one thing you could not do against him is back off him. Because his 15-foot jump shot was just as good as his dunk.
To your point, Ken, he was rolling in Cleveland, even with the weight.
With the weight. And he made the All-Star team. With the, you know,
so we saw him.
Right.
I think we saw him.
But this is a what-if moment, Ernie, that you're talking about, where it could be one of those scenarios where it's too much too soon. Shawn Kemp was 20 years old when he came into the league, was playing for the Sonics. The team was starting to build itself up with Gary Payton as the point guard, and then all of a sudden they sort of struck lightning in a bottle with George Karl being the coach, their style of play where they were trapping, and then they had a bunch of veteran guys like Detlef Schrempf and Hershey Hawkins and Dale Ellis and all these guys around them. But Shawn Kemp and Gary were the face of the franchise, and all of these things came so fast for a guy out of nowhere to come into the league, be that young, and all those things happen, that maybe it wasn't altogether there off the floor. So we did get a glimpse of that, but maybe it's a what-if, too much too soon scenario that has played out in professional sports for decades.
And the next clip is a pretty recent one, and actually one of the nicest scenes of NBA basketball that I've seen in the last couple of years, where Dirk Nowitzki was surprised by his former idols, or not former, but his idols, and of course Shawn Kemp was missing, and Dirk Nowitzki used that opportunity to give some warm words to his idols.
Another guy I love to watch, Shawn Kemp. Just his athleticism, he was probably one of the best in-game dunkers that we've seen in our league. Just super athletic and crazy finishes around the rim. So I love watching him play as well.
Now the next player that we're going to talk about is Paul Pierce. For whatever reason, every single time Shawn Kemp gets mentioned on the jump, Paul Pierce has this comparison to make.
Today is the 27th anniversary of Shawn Kemp.
No.
I'm so sorry.
No.
I'm so sorry.
Woo!
Sorry, Mr.
Now,
Lister.
see, this is who I compare Zion to.
Okay.
Shawn Kemp.
Wow.
If you ever wondered why Kemp pointed at Lister post-dunk, it was because in Game 2 of Warriors-Sonics, Lister pushed Kemp on a dunk attempt, resulting in, let's just call it a brouhaha between both players. So you kind of got to like the pettiness here, right?
So, you know, our great producer, Steve, brought this to me today. I'm like, why do I not remember this? I looked at the date. It was April 23rd, 1992. My daughter was 4 weeks old.
Aww.
I was not sleeping, and I was definitely not watching
NBA basketball.
I'm like, sorry I missed this. This is a gaping hole in my NBA resume.
Now that we have featured some players and also former teammates of Shawn Kemp, let's see what his former coach, George Karl, the legendary George Karl, has to say about Shawn.
Shawn was a different one. He was kind of I don't know if the loner is the word, but he was independent a lot of the team. And he kind of had his own way of doing things. Sometimes it battled the coach, being late. He was a late guy. which drives coaches crazy. But fortunately, I never let that stop me from playing him. Fortunately, I had good assistant coaches. Make sure you know, whatever you do, make sure he plays.
Now the next player that we're going to talk about is Kevin Durant, so a still active player who did something very nice, not only for the Seattle Supersonic fans, but also to me as a neutral fan. That was one of the nicest gestures that I've seen in a very, very long time. Check it out.
Just see so many Sonic jerseys, Jeff. It's really wild to see, and look what he's wearing as he comes out. That is cool.
Walking out here in the crowd wearing the Kemp jersey here.
Oh man, when I woke up from my pregame nap, I was just nervous. You know, I never felt that way coming into a game, especially a preseason game. But just knowing this whole thing was kind of set up for that moment, I guess. It was just crazy feeling to come out and feel that much love from the fan base, and to honor one of the past legends of the game and also a Sonic legend was pretty cool.
All right, you guys, that's it for today's video. Just one little reminder, if you like Shawn Kemp, on my other show, Sean David TV, I have a new segment called Talking Sense, which I do with former NBA professional Gert Hemming. Yes, he used to play with the Orlando Magic with Penny Hardaway and Shaquille O'Neal. And we are discussing if Shawn Kemp belongs into the Hall of Fame. So if you want to see that, please check out the other channel, Sean David TV. And I hope to see you next time. Peace. I'm out.